This video is on Microsoft Access Unit L, creating database reports. So we're going to take a look at the objectives for this unit. In this unit we're going to talk about how to create a report using the report wizard, how to view a report, how to modify a report, how to add a field to a report. We're also going to talk about applying conditional formatting to a report, add summary information to a report, creating mailing labels. Okay, so to create a report using the report wizard is very similar to creating a query using a query wizard, or using really any other type of wizard. So a report is a summary of database information designed specifically for printing. So probably touched on this a little bit before, but databases are really good at sorting data, running queries against data, storing information, but they're not necessarily suited for printing information straight out of the database. Now you can take a screenshot and print a screenshot of maybe a table that's sorted the way you want, but really when it comes to Microsoft Access, if you want to produce some type of printable output that is looks professional and visually appealing, you're going to have to create a report and format that report to get that type of result out of Access. So report data can be from one database object or from multiple database objects, and what we're referring to there is tables, queries, things of that nature. You can be from multiple queries, can be from multiple tables, or some variation thereof. One way to create a report is by using Report Wizard, which automatically creates a report based on settings that you specify. So what does that mean? That could mean you select the fields that you want to display. That means you could sort those fields ascending, descending, include only certain parameters out of the with those fields. If we could create a query that would produce a report based on certain parameters, things of that nature. So that's what we mean when we say that we specify the criteria. Okay, so just a little more information on reports and using the report wizard. The reports can be saved as objects, which is a good thing. So once you create a report, you basically will create a report by building the structure of the report, formatting the report the way you want it to look, including the data that you want to include, things of that nature, and that format, that structure of that report can be saved so it can be used over and over again. Reports also consist of sections that contain specific information, as we would expect. It could be, again, any field in a database. It could be a calculated field. It could be any number of things, as long as it can be pulled or created from information in the database. You should be able to include it in any report that you would want to create. So choosing the record sources to select database objects from which the report gets its data. Alright, so that's going to be one of the things that you're going to do using the report wizard. You're going to select which tables, if you want to select the output of a query, you can do that. So you're going to choose the data source as you would expect when you make your way through the report wizard. You can also use grouping to organize a report by field or field values. It's just another way to format a report. Okay, so when we start talking about viewing a report, there are several different views, and this is similar to the views that you would expect in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint. There's more than one way to look at a document in those applications, just like there is more than one way to look at a report in Microsoft Access. So you've got the print preview, which we all should know what print preview is by now. That's exactly how the report will look when it's printed on paper. So it gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. Report view looks similar to print preview, except it displays the report in continuous flow without page breaks. So it's not exactly the printed format. Design view, that includes many tools for modifying the report, but shows only the structure of the report and not any included data, just like design view does for queries or tables. Same idea. Displays the structure only, no data related to it. And then the layout view does not include many modification tools as design view, but it also shows report data. So that's kind of like a hybrid of report view and design view. That's what layout view is. It does have some modification tools, not as many, but it also shows you report data, which can be helpful. And these icons that you'll notice in Access to Microsoft Access 2013, that anytime you see an icon with a colored background that matches the color of the application. For example, Microsoft Access is, as you can see, the icon at the bottom of my screen here has a purple icon. Well, if you see a button that has that purple background, you're going to find it down on the toolbar, or down on the bar at the bottom right hand, or just above the toolbar, I should say, on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. The green ones you would see for Excel, a blue background what you would see on buttons for Word, and then the red ones you would see for PowerPoint. And those would be located, let's see here, again I'm using Windows 2007, so it's not visible here, but you would find those, actually let's see, okay, so this is a similar, the 2007 version doesn't have the colored icons, but at this location on the screen you should have 3 or 4 buttons: data sheet view, pivot table view. So these are some different views than what's listed in our PowerPoint, but this is the area that you would find those views that I'm referring to, and you would be able to toggle between the views by clicking those icons. Okay, so that's what these are. But the key is, anytime you see that colored background on the icon, those buttons are not up here on the ribbon, they're down at the bottom on the bar at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Alright, so sometimes once we've created a report, we may want to modify a report. And reports are commonly modified to improve its appearance. Let's say we've created a report and we really don't like the way it looks, or it doesn't look the way we expected it to. So we would modify that report, and we can use, probably in that situation, as the PowerPoint indicates, you can use layout view to resize, move, and delete columns, so you can kind of get an idea of what you're doing to your report with some data included while you're modifying the report. So that's a good time that layout view would be useful to use, is when you do have some data available, and you're modifying the report to try to tweak its appearance and make it look presentable. Okay, adding a field to a report. So you can also use layout view to add a field to a report. You just open the field list and double click the desired field, and those fields are added to the left side of a report. Adjustments might need to be made, as you might expect, to the other columns to place the new field where needed. And since you create reports unless you use some type of template. Reports are somewhat freestyle, so you can add text and labels and data anywhere on the report. You can also use a template that kind of gives a standard layout, but anytime you want to add data to the report, you're going to have to probably move around some of the other data fields on that report to adjust it and make it look appropriate. Alright, and just a little bit more on adding fields to the report. A field is composed of 2 parts: the field label and its associated control. Now, what is a control? Our text lists a control as an object that displays information in a report, and different types of controls are used for each data type. So when you add a field to a report, the field label is automatically added to the header section, and the control is added to either the group header or the detail section. Okay, and you will see that in your tutorial when you get to, let's see, when you get to the report section. Alright, so adding a field to report, here are just some common terms that you would need to know, like the report header that contains the report name or a company logo and appears only at the top of the first page of the report. So notice it's called a report header instead of the next term, which is called page header. You obviously, as you would expect, that contains field labels and appears at the top of every page, but below the report header on the first page. Okay. A group header contains the chosen group field name and appears at the beginning of a group's records. Group is replaced by the chosen field name. So if you have a group of records that you want to call attention to, you can use a group header to do so. Detail usually contains bound controls and appears once for every record in the underlying data sheet. So that's a detail. And the group footer is a footer, as you might expect, that contains the chosen group field name and appears at the end of every group of records. Group is replaced by the field name. So this is, you have a group header and a group footer. Call out a specific group of fields if you so choose. Then you also have a page footer, which would be a footer located at the bottom of each page throughout the report, and then a report footer, as you might guess, is the last item to appear in the report, and it's a footer at the bottom of the last page of the report. Alright, so let's see. Applying conditional formatting to a report. We should remember conditional formatting from Microsoft Excel, and you can apply conditional formatting to access to highlight key information. For example, if I wanted to create a report on sales and highlight the top performers and maybe the subpar performers on my report, I can format my report using conditional formatting to do so. And what conditional formatting means, just as a refresher, is you're going to format the data on the report based on some condition. For example, for sales, let's say that every salesperson has a sales goal of $15,000 a month. Well, once that condition, being $15,000, is met, then you may want to color that salesperson's information green on your report. So a manager, a higher level manager, can look at the report quickly and see who obtained their sales goal and who didn't, and he can focus on the areas that need improvement. So that's conditional formatting. There's various many other ways to use conditional formatting, but that's just one example. Okay, and you'll access the conditional formatting rules manager dialog box from the report layout tools format tab in layout view. So in the layout view, you should see a report layout tools format tab when the report is selected. Remember, that's a contextual menu. When that item is selected, an additional menu becomes available. It allows you to work with more options based on that object. Alright, let's see. Adding summary information to a report. Alright, so it is possible to add like a summary information in some reports that display statistics about one or more fields in a database. And summaries can include statistics from sum, average, count, minimum, maximum, and any other numeric field. It's kind of we should remember those functions from Microsoft Excel. And there are 5 summary calculations you can use in your database reports. And you can add summary information while creating the report with a report wizard. So you have the option to create it while you're going through the wizard, or creating it after the fact if you need to modify your report. Okay. And here are the lists of the 5 common summary calculations available in database reports. And you can see sum is the total values of all values in the field. Average is the average of all values in the field. Count, that's the number of records in the database. Minimum, that's the smallest value in the field, and maximum obviously is the largest value in the field. Alright, and creating mailing labels. So what this does, if you haven't gotten to this point in your tutorial yet, you will when you look at the mail merge. you do not have to print all reports. You can use the data in a database to create other forms of printed output, such as labels or envelopes. And you can use the label wizard to create labels containing data from any fields in a database. And those labels can be based on queries or tables. So what we would do in this situation is we could create a query that would create labels for us using the salutation, the first name, last name, address, city, state, zip for a list of customers. If I wanted to send a mailer or a flyer, excuse me for a second, and my apologies for that, but you can create labels based on queries in an Access database. So for example, if we flip over to Microsoft Access and we look at the Create tab, we can look at the Reports group, and you can see we have several options. We've got Reports, we've got Labels, a blank report, we've got the Report Wizard, the Report Design. So we could click Labels and use the Label Wizard to create labels based on our specifications. Anyone that has ever printed labels using just a regular desktop printer knows that there are many manufacturers and there are many label types, and typically you have to input that information into Microsoft Word, and that in most situations, to get the labels to print correctly. Similar thought here. We have a product number that gives a label size, it gives us dimension, it gives the number of labels across, so we can tell our report query how to format each individual label for printing. So we would select, let's just, we'll go with the, let's see, the first selection here as C2241. It's got 2 labels across, and this dimensions looks like are 1 1/4 inch by 7 31/50 inches. Okay. Now it's asking us what type of font we would like to use. We want to use Arial. We'll say font size 8, font weight. Let's make it medium. We want the text to be black. Alright, now what would you like to put on your mailing label? Well, first thing we would like to do would be put first name, last name, with a space in between. So the way the label will look is it'll take this field, the first name field, and it'll output that. It'll read the space here between the two, and then it'll output the last name. Okay. If I wanted to put first, last, address, city, state, and zip code, I'm not going to put the space in between here, and you can take a look and see what that looks like and what that does and how it makes your label not as a little unsightly, we'll say. Alright, so we've got the first name, last name, address, city, state, and zip. Alright, so let's move on. Let's see, which field would you like to sort by? We'll sort by last name. So that'll be our sort by field. Alright, and then say what would you like to name your report? We'll call it Labels Houses. See the labels as they will look printed. Click Finish. Alright, so now you can see you've got the first and last name. They're sorted in alphabetical order by last name. But if you look at the first name and last name, you can notice my space in between the first and last name. If you look at the address, you can see that there's not a space between the address and city and the state and then the zip, because I didn't include one. Okay, so if I want to include one, I would go back and I would modify my report. Now, you can see that modifying the report after the fact looks a little bit more complicated than it does beforehand. So what we're going to do is, you can notice, and anybody who's has programming experience will understand that there's a space between these quotation marks. That is the symbol, or that's how you would designate a space. So to do that for our address, city, state, and zip line, we'll have to do the same thing. We'll have to input that. So we're going to put in a ampersand, and we're going to put in a quote, a space, and a quote between address and city. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing between city and state. We're going to add an and sign, or an ampersand as it's called. Quote, space, quote. And we're going to do the same thing for state and zip. We're going to put in that ampersand, quote, space, quote. Let's add a space here between state. I want to make sure this thing renders correctly. Alright. Let's see now. Design, arrange. Okay, let's save that. Now let's go to our labels report and run it, and you can see our spaces are inserted now. So small tricks like that can make your labels or your reports look much better. Okay, let's see, while we're looking at access, let's go back to create. Let's create a report. Alright, so if I wanted to create a report from scratch, this would be something that I would do. I would create it from scratch without using the report wizard. Much more difficult. You can see you have the report header here, you have a page header, the detail, the page footer. So I would excuse me, I could insert my controls and my labels and create my own report using the design view in this manner. Or the much easier and preferred method would be to create using a report wizard, and we'll select our table houses. We'll use the first, last names. We'll use the address, city, state, zip. Okay, next. We'll say we'll sort by last name again, ascending order. Let's see, we'll take a tabular layout, and we'll want the orientation to be in landscape, or excuse me, portrait. Let's see, and it's asked what style we like to use. We'll just go with the default Office 7. The report name houses is fine. We'll click finish. Okay, so now one thing that I see is the last names are cut off. Those are cut off because the column isn't wide enough. Looks like some of the addresses are probably also cut off. Well, the only way I can correct that is to go to the design view for the report and begin moving my fields around. Let's see, zip, we know we're not going to need a lot of space. Address, you typically do need a lot of space. So we'll take address, we'll make it a little bit bigger. And you can see here, these are the headers up here. These are the details. This is where the data is coming from. Okay. Alright, so we'll save that. We'll go back to report view. Now you can see the last names are easily seen. Addresses are easily seen. And we still have enough room for the city, state, and zip. And our report looks fairly good. Okay. So this is how you create a report. Creating reports, mailing labels, that's all going to be part of your assignment for Microsoft Access. I will say that during your assignment there are 3 or 4 questions when you're creating queries. Let's go ahead and pull that up from the website. Let's go to assignments. And we will go to the assignment sheet, or the assignment PDF file. Let's see. Here we go, access assignment document. Alright, while we wait for it to open, I'll point out a couple of tips to everyone. It may make your assignment easier. Alright, let's see. While we wait. Okay, there's our assignment. Alright, beginning at number, I'll say number 6, you're going to create some queries. What I will say about creating these queries is that when you're asked to run or create a query that only specifies or only selects a certain criteria, remember that word. Looking at a query, see if we have one handy. We don't. We can make one really quick. Create a query wizard. You guys bear with me while I create a query so I can speak to it. Okay, so let's open the query. We've got it open. Let's go to design view. Alright, so our assignment asks us to select houses which are only in the state of Lee. Okay? Alright, so if I wanted to do that, I would create a query, and then in my criteria box, I would type in Lee, and I would run it. And you can see before where I had my query returned all of the records in the database, because basically all I asked my query to do was return all the records in the database because I didn't specify any criteria. It did so. Now when I give it additional criteria by saying only show me the records that have a state that's equal to Lee, that's what it does. Okay, so that's one way, or one example. Another example would be, let's see, bedrooms or baths. If I'm shopping for a house, usually I want to look at a house that has so many bedrooms, so many bathrooms. So for bedrooms, we'll say we want we want a house with 4 bedrooms, and we also want that house to have at least 2 baths. And when I say at least, that means I want 2 or more, which is written mathematically greater than or equal to. Okay, so this query is telling the database to return the results for houses that have 4 bedrooms, equal to 4 bedrooms, and at least 2 baths. So when we run that, that should be our results. Alright, so if we look at our results, we can see all of the houses that our query returned have 4 bedrooms, and they have at least 2 baths. 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2.5, and 3. So when you're doing your assignment, just remember, and when you're taking your test for that matter, these criteria fields are where you specify how you want your query to filter out data or filter on certain data. Okay? Alright, so if you have any questions, please let me know. This will be the last lecture video for the semester, so if you watch this one, then you've completed all the videos. And if you have questions, just reach out to me through course messages. Thanks.